Planning the Garden from the War Gardens by Montague Free. Coffee Break Collection 33, Gardening. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Ahana Malik. Planning the Garden. A garden can be made without a plan, but it is usually a haphazard sort of affair, and it frequently means that much more money is spent for seeds than is necessary. Another frequent happening in a miss or hit garden of this kind is a plethora of some kinds of vegetables and a great scarcity of others. It is difficult to give any definite information as to the quantities of vegetables to grow, as yields vary so much owing to the character of the soil and climate, the variety of the vegetable, and the skill or lack of it of the gardener. The preferences of the individual must also be considered. The table in the appendix giving the approximate amount of vegetables that can be obtained from a 100-foot row may be helpful. It must be remembered, however, that these figures are only approximate and that wide variations can be expected. When planning your garden, you must take into consideration the sunshine it receives, and if part of it is shaded, reserve that part for those crops that will endure shade. If there is any variation in the nature of the soil, whether in regard to its physical condition, fertility, or wetness, you should place the crops accordingly. As a general rule, the rows should run north and south, as by this plan, each row receives its share of sunlight. If for any reason this is not practicable, put the tall growing crops at the north end of the plot so that they do not shade the smaller kinds. The perennial crops like asparagus and rhubarb are best placed at one end or side of the plot so that they are not in the way when digging or plowing is being done. It makes a better looking plot if those vegetables which are planted the same distance apart are grouped together. Plan to have the ground occupied for the whole season. Many vegetables take a comparatively short time in which to mature, and these can be removed when harvested and the ground occupied by another crop. Thus, peas can be followed by cauliflower or cabbage, early beets by beans, lettuce by tomato, and so on. Find out the average number of growing days in your locality and consult the table in the appendix giving the number of days required to bring the various crops to maturity. When planning for succession vegetables, have some regard to crop rotation. That is to say, if the ground in the early part of the season has been occupied by a leaf crop, follow it by a fruit crop, or vice versa. Early cabbage followed by beans may be cited as an example. Similarly, root crops may be followed by leaf crops as early carrots and fall spinach. Another important reason for crop rotation is that it lessens the danger of loss from disease. Many of the fungus diseases of plants are carried over from year to year in the soil. Some of them are able to live on only one particular host plant, and if that crop is not grown in the soil where the fungus is hibernating, the disease ultimately dies out through lack of food. The first thing to do in planning a vegetable garden is to measure the plot and transfer its outlines to scale on paper. Then, bearing in mind the considerations just outlined in this chapter, decide on the kinds of vegetables you wish to grow. Now the real fun of planning begins. The desires of the grower as to quantities and variety of vegetables must be scaled down so as to fit the plot. Take a ruler and draw lines across your plan to represent the rows of vegetables. The distance between the rows may be drawn to scale to correspond with the actual distance between the rows on the ground, or you may merely note the theoretical distance between the lines. Write the name of the vegetable on each line, with that of the succession crop, if any. It is a good idea to mount your plan on stiff cardboard when finished and to allow a space either at the side or on the back for making notes to be taken during the growing season. These notes may consist of reminders that such and such a crop is not suited in its present location, the time occupied from seed sowing to maturity, the desirability or otherwise of certain vegetables, etc. End of planning the garden.